If you didn't get it, put your hand up. Let me see. All right, here we go. I want to say it slowly, just in case. Cheryl Felix 11 at gmail.com. Spelt as follows. Cheryl, CHERYL. Felix, PHOENIX. 11 at gmail.com.
Sorry about all of the side. We have more people interested in the event than expected. But today I'm going to be speaking to you about the Windrush compensation scheme, what the eligibility criteria is, how to apply, what the application process looks like, and any other useful information as well of what you can add into the form. Next slide, please. So my name is Katie Wilson Downey, and I am an entrepreneur and a community activist. And I found out about this scheme by hearing it in the community and watching the news and stuff, and by understanding that my dad come from that era. So I've always known that my dad come from the Windrush era. So when I heard about the scheme, I called my dad and I said, "Dad, have you heard about this scheme?" And he said no. When I told him, we knew that he was eligible, so I supported him to apply, and he was one of the first people to apply back in 2019. But he was a successful claimant and he did get a lot of money, so that's the reason why I want everyone to be aware of this scheme, because it's very likely that you're also eligible as well. So we're going to talk about what it means to be eligible, and then what evidence that you need to collect. Next slide, please. So the government brought out this scheme. They announced it in 2018 for it to open in April 2019. And this scheme is awarded to anyone from the Windrush era. Now, a lot of people are confused about what the Windrush era means. So, and many of the elders, when I've spoken to them, they said to me, "Oh, I don't qualify, I didn't come on the ship, but if I qualify and I'm mixed race and born in Britain, then I'm sure that you would qualify as an elder." So, what is the main criteria? If you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, then it's very likely that you're eligible if you come from a British Commonwealth nation. So, most of the Caribbean islands were British Commonwealth nations. Some African countries were also British Commonwealth nations, and even some non-black countries are even listed on there. Yeah, if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, you qualify. Next slide, please. But if you've had deportation and immigration issues, you would get an award of compensation. A lot of people don't realise that they've had immigration issues, but if you've had to be naturalised or neutralised, then that you can apply for the deportation and immigration part of this application. So a lot of our elders come here and they had to pay or even do the free process of naturalisation or neutralisation. When you was already British, you was already British due to the British Nationality Act 1981, which stipulates that if you was born in a British Commonwealth nation before a specific date, then you are a British subject. A British subject means that you are classed as a British citizen by birthright and by law. Therefore, when you come to this country, you was already British, so the fact that you have to go through a whole process and be told if you don't naturalise by this date, then you're deported or you're going to be fined, and they would scare you, you know. And the fact that British by laws, the whole process of the naturalisation and neutralisation, that alone means that you've suffered. You should have never have had to have gone through that. Now, many of our elders say, "Oh, when I come, I was naturalised, and from being naturalised, I've worked and everything, and I've had no issues, and I own my house." Guess what? You still qualify, because you never should have had to be naturalised or neutralised, and you never should have paid for it. But even if you got it for free, you still qualify. So on here is a list of countries, a list of nations that are eligible for the scheme. Don't worry if you don't see your nation listed on here, because there's many that are not listed on here, but I'm just going to name a few of them just so you can get an understanding of how far and wide this scheme is. So on there we've got St. Lucia, Samoa, the Seychelles, Sierra Leone, Solomon Islands, South Africa, St. George and the Sandwich Islands. We've even got like Sri Lanka and stuff on there. We've got Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, Trinidad and Tobago, the Gambia, the Bahamas, Tanzania, Swaziland, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and Grenadines, of course Jamaica. There's so many places that are on there that make you eligible. So whether you're Caribbean, whether you're directly African, that you very likely that you are to be. Sorry, the mic's playing up. Next slide, please. If you don't see your country on there, remember, don't panic. Just still do the application if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation. So, who is eligible? People who entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973 from a British Commonwealth nation is eligible. And I know I've said that lots of times, I'm going to say it again lots of times throughout the presentation just to make people fully aware of what the date is. But their children as well. So, for example, my dad come to the UK from Jamaica before the specific date in 1973. He entered the UK in 1971. When my dad come here, he was 17 years old. He was left in Jamaica by his mum when he was 6 years old, and he grew up with his grandma on his dad's side. He grew up without his mum. Growing up without your mum as a child in your childhood has psychological impact on us, and a lot of us have been through that, you know. And a lot of us may see people in our community that look like they're struggling with mental health, or look like they're struggling with substance misuse, smoking crack or whatever, or women doing behaviours that are kind of killing themselves, basically, destructive behaviour, and people may look down on them, but you never know what they're dealing with, and it's very likely that anyone, especially that is born in the 70s or before that, have experienced trauma through this scandal. The government acknowledge that it's a scandal now, and that's why they're paying us compensation. And I say all of that to say, make sure that you apply, make sure that you support your elders to apply, make sure that you support your family members to apply as well, even the ones who you think may not be worth it. All right, if you come before the 1st of January 1973, you're eligible, but so are all of your children as well. Every single one of them can claim independently. My father has 9 kids. I think about 8 of us have applied already. About 3 of us have been successful already, at least 3 of us. And my father, he was successful as well. So I got my compensation last year. I got £20,000. And as I said, I don't qualify for immigration or deportation because I'm British born and my mum's white as well. But with all of that said, if I qualify, then you in here, especially the elders then, you all qualify as well. So make sure that you apply, because I don't think I ever would have saw £20,000 in my bank at once without applying for this scheme. Do you know what I mean? So everyone needs to apply. My dad, he got way more than that. He got way more than that. I'm not going to disclose how much he got, but he was into the high thousands. So please make sure that you do apply, and don't be selfish as well and just apply for yourself. Make sure you support your elders to apply. It's better if you support your elders to apply first, because when you do your application, it's easy for them to trace it back to your father or the person who come then. So I supported my father to apply, then my elder brother to apply, and then I applied myself. It took them about longer than a year to assess my dad's compensation application, because he was one of the first people in 2019 when it first opened. Mine was just under a year, but my sister applied recently, and she got her award in less than 8 months, probably sooner than that. So please do make sure that you apply. Trust me, it works and it's real. So we're going to go on to the next slide, please. But I'm reading out the information, so if you can take notes, that'll be useful. But all of this information is actually written on the applications itself and on the government website. So I'll read out the address for the government website, and this is where all of you need to apply for the applications. So the applications for the compensation scheme are free. So if you everyone get your pens and paper ready. It's www.gov.uk the Windrush Compensation Scheme. That's www.gov.uk/the Windrush Compensation Scheme. Now, you need to know that website because that's the only website where you should download forms from. Any other forms won't qualify for the application, you know. And there's people out there that are putting all type of information on the internet, so whatever information you get, make sure it's from the government website because that's where the factual information is and that's where the application forms are as well. A lot of this information is actually taken directly from the government website, by the way. The reason why I've done this presentation is because a lot of the language that they use on the government website and on the application forms is a little bit complex. So the reason why I do this presentation is to make everyone understand the process, but also to understand it clearly. There's different types of applications. There's the application for the people who come before the 1st of January 1973. They are the primary claimants. So if you entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973, you need to apply on a primary application form. If you apply on a different application form, you're going to be told no and you're going to think you're not eligible, when in fact you've just written it on the wrong form. So if you come before the 1st of January 1973, it's a primary claimant application, or if your parents did and they're still alive. If your parents or family members come to the UK before the 1st of January 1973 and they're no longer alive, then you need to apply on the representative of an estate application. That's the name of it. Representative of an estate application for deceased family members. If you're applying for a deceased family member, what you need to do is you need to first and foremost write down and evidence how that person is eligible for the scheme. So say, for example, if I was applying for my granddad, I would first write that he come to the UK in 1962 and he come here by aeroplane or boat or whatever. I'd write down the method and I'd say which part of Jamaica he left and then which part of England he arrived to and the dates, if I have the dates. Any evidence, some of us still have the original travel documents for our parents or grandparents. Some people have the nationalisation or neutralisation paper. Some people have their tickets of what they used to get on the boat or the plane. If you have any of those, use that. If you don't, then use what you can. So, for example, if my granddad come then, but I didn't have proof of any travel documents, but I had proof of his national insurance number, and I have his birth paper that says he was born in Kingston, but he got his UK national insurance number, say like in 1969, then of course I would use that as evidence to show like a chronology of what he's been doing in that time. A lot of us think that we don't have evidence, but trust me, we do. So I helped a homeless guy fill out this application form and apply for the compensation scheme. And he had nothing, he had no documents, he didn't have anything. But what I was able to support him with is retrieving documents to prove that he was in care as a child and as a teenager, and then evidence from the prison system and from the police and stuff to show that he's got a track record of being in the UK from this date to that date. And I know that sometimes people say, I don't want to use that, or what if they refuse me because I've been to prison? It's not the case. If you're eligible, you're eligible. It doesn't matter whether you've been to prison, whether you're... I think, to be honest, even if you are in prison, I'd be surprised if they refuse to let people in prison apply, because the reasons why you're applying is due to trauma that you've experienced. So I don't know anyone who's excluded from applying to this compensation scheme other than people who do not meet the basic eligibility criteria. So all of us have evidence, even evidence. If you've been in school and college here, you've got that evidence. If you've been on benefits, you've got evidence that you've been here. It shows a full evidence of your addresses. It shows evidence. If you grew up without your parents, but you grew up with other adults here in the UK, you should be named on their child benefits or whatever. There's always a way to prove where you lived, and like in terms of what address and what area as well. There's always a way to evidence it. Other than evidencing through your benefits and prison records or social worker records, if you've been employed here, you can use your employment history. And if you've got any health records, so if you've ever been diagnosed with anxiety, depression, stress, any other type of health issues, emotional health issues, physical health issues, mental health issues, if you've been detained under the Mental Health Act, you can use all of that of, number one, if you've been treated unfairly, but number two, that you've suffered in your life. If you've used any support service for anything, use that as evidence. Now, all you need to do, because some people think, well, I've got none of those letters in my house. I know that, but you can call these agencies and you can request a record of your files, or you can ask them to write you a letter to state that you used their service between this year and that year. That's all you need to do. Now, if you contact the agency and they're not allowed to refuse to provide you your own documents, but if they do, there's two pieces of legislation you can use on them. So there's the DSAR legislation, which means it's a direct subject access request. If you write to any company, any official company in the UK, and use a DSAR, it's DSAR, which stands for Direct Subject Access Request. If you write to them under that and request your information, they have to provide it to you by law. Now, if that fails, which it shouldn't, you can use the Freedom of Information Act. So if you write to someone, you would write something like, I don't know, Dear DWP Benefits, under the Freedom of Information Act, I request a copy of files, or I request confirmation that I've used your service between, I don't know, 2000 and 2020. Can you please confirm this? They have to respond to you within 28 days. Every single organisation in the UK that's officially registered. So trust me, there's a way to evidence it. For our sisters, if you've had children here, if you think, oh, well, I've got none of my original documents from when I entered the UK, all right then. If you've got evidence to say that you was in Jamaica, say in 1960, but then you've got evidence that you applied for your national insurance in the UK in 1964, then that's evidence. You need to just evidence as much as possible anything that you claim for. Next slide, please. Anything that you claim for that you haven't provided evidence for, you won't be awarded any compensation. So if you're applying for yourself as a close family member, so if you was born in the UK and your parents come then, or your grandparents come then, you apply as a close family member. You need to first and foremost declare who that person is, how you're related to them, and when they come to the UK. So this is going to take a lot of communication with the family, and even if you don't speak to them because of this and because of that, just spark the conversation. When you mention money and you say, oh Nan, did you know you're eligible for compensation? You know, trust me, the conversations are going to start flowing, and even you need information from family in order to complete the form. If you don't get information from them, it's going to be very hard to kind of track and trace who you are, how you're related to someone who came before 1973, and then how you've suffered. So on the application form, there's 3 areas where you can be awarded compensation. The first is immigration and deportation. Immigration and deportation, on there you'll put nationalisation, neutralisation, anytime you've been asked to prove your right in the UK, any letters you've received from the UK Home Office stating that you are British or you're not British or whatever. What you need to do is you need to evidence how family members to fill it out. Take time with yourself and your family members, trust me, because it is long and it is stressful. But with all of that said, it works, and I need you all to apply. So, different types of evidence. I think we've discussed most of these. But yeah, history of your bank account, if you've had a post office account, if you have a driver's license. The DVLA has kept a record of every single place you've ever registered a car or registered your driving license. So again, that's how you can look for records to prove that you've been here all of this time. For those of us that have been born here, next slide please. For those of us that have been born here, we don't have to prove that we've been here all of our lives, because they know that because of our British status. But we do need to explain how it's impacted us. So any type of evidence that you can get, please use it. And I must state that anything what you write on the form that you can't evidence, you won't be given an award of compensation for. You will only be awarded for that which you can evidence. So there's no point in thinking, all right, I'm going to make loads of stuff up. That's not going to work. You can, of course, exaggerate on the things you do have evidence for. You can exaggerate on how it's affected your life, but some people don't need to exaggerate because of the things they've been through. So remember that if you're writing on impact of life, the impact of life category, which everyone qualifies for, you need to write about employment. Categories that you can apply under, that this is what you need to write down, right? You need to write your history of housing. If you've ever been homeless, if you've ever had to sleep on a friend's sofa, if you've ever been evicted from your house and all of that, you can put all of that. If you've ever had issues in your house, poor housing from the council, you can put all of that down. If you've ever been detained, that's under the Mental Health Act. That's also under immigration as well. If you've ever been detained under any immigration act, you can claim for that. Each day that you've been detained, you get thousands and thousands of pounds for, by the way. If you've ever been in a deportation, you're going to get £40,000 or above for this if you've ever been in a deportation centre. You can get evidence from court and from the deportation centre itself if you haven't kept the records. If you've ever been at risk of being removed, now some people have actually been sat down on the charter plane before they've been told, oh sorry, we can't deport you, can you get off the plane? Some people were never asked to get off the plane, they were actually returned. Those type of people, you're getting the most money, trust me. Health, I've already mentioned health, but education as well. If anyone's got children where they've been excluded or expelled, or if you've had a negative time in education, you can claim for that as well, you know. So even if you're like in my age range, but your kids are being excluded and stuff, you can relate it, you can claim on this, but you relate it to institutional racism and systemic racism in society. So you're not only claiming for the traumas that our parents have been through in Chestnut Bar, you call 111, and you can request medical records. They'll probably give you another contact number or for a service called PALS, that's a patient advisory line or something like that. For your patient advisory liaison service, that's who's responsible for issuing medical records. So and remember to use the Freedom of Information Act request if you need to. Next slide, please. Yes, so how to apply. So I've gave everyone the government website. What you do, go on there and make sure it's a correct form. The links are here, but these are just the links taken direct from the government website. So if you go on the government website using the information I gave you earlier, this is what you're going to find, all right. So the primary claimant is for people who come before the 1st of January 1973. Close family members are for the children, sons, daughters, parents. Someone asked me a key question earlier. What if your grandma come then, or your mum come then, but she had children in the Caribbean that she left there and they've never been to the UK, but she come before the 1st of January 1973. Can they claim? The answer is yes. They can claim because they suffered, and they can claim under the close family member form because they are a child of someone who entered the UK before the 1st of January 1973. So if you're supporting your family, or if they come here before that date, but then say like in 1999 they decided to go back to Jamaica or whichever island or nation they're from, and they didn't come back here, can they still claim? The answer is yes. People from abroad, people who live abroad, that did come then, or that are children of people who come then, can apply on the same forms. So primary claimant if they come then, or the child if they come then. All they need to do though is email it to this email address. I'm going to read out this email address because it's different to the one that we use. So it's the Commonwealth Task Force at homeoffice.gov.uk. That's where we tell our family and friends to send their application to if they don't longer live in the UK. So that's Commonwealth Task Force at homeoffice.gov.uk. There is a telephone number for the Windrush helpline, but they've been giving people the incorrect advice, telling people they're not eligible when they actually are. I will read out the number just because I know some people may find it useful, but if they tell you you're not eligible, don't listen to them. Fill out the application and make the Home Office actually tell you that you're not eligible after you've completed the application. So the helpline telephone number for the Windrush Compensation Scheme, this is the Government Home Office, this is not my number, yeah? It's 0800 678 1925. That's 0800 678 1925. Yes. Only if they're eligible, yes. So make them apply first, the parent, right? And then you see, As soon as they say that you're eligible, if they tell any of you eligible, know that your children are eligible. Okay, know that your children are eligible. It's better if you do it by generation. Start with the generation who come before that time, then go under and under and under, because they will link it, you see. They will link it up. And if they qualify, if you qualify, it's very likely that your children are going to qualify. I think they only give it up to 3 or 4 generations though. But, say for example, if it's a 5th generation but they lived with their grandma or whatever, they would qualify as well as a close family member. Yes, so the process is you collect and collate your evidence, right? Find out what evidence you have in your house, find out what evidence your family members may have, and then find out what evidence any external services may have, right? That can take a while though, because when you make these applications for information, it can take up to 28 days or sometimes longer for the hospital or police or whoever to give you these records. Just wait. I know it's long, but just wait, because it's all going to make sense in the end. Once you collect your evidence, you have to write it like a biography, accepting offer or whether you're going to refuse it. If you've been through a lot of stuff, don't accept the first offer. Request the second one. When they offered me £20,000, I thought, you know what, I'm going to take that. But I could have challenged it, but I just thought it's a lot considering I was born here and stuff. So yeah, it's up to you whether you accept the first offer or if you don't. Or if you're really not happy with an offer, then you can appeal it and say, or a decision. So if they say you're not eligible, but you know you are, then appeal the decision and follow the appeal process. If you do get to that stage where you're appealing or where you've got an offer and you don't know whether you should take it or not, or even if they've sent you a letter and you don't understand it, get in touch with the Black Child Agenda and myself or Cheryl will contact you and we'll guide you through what the next steps are. Now, I'm going to close because this building, we were only supposed to have it up until 2 p.m, but due to the mass turnout, obviously they've gave us the building for longer. I must say thank you to the people who did give us the building, but I'm going to end the presentation now. I'm going to take 3 questions. Yes, please. Sorry? The address to send the form to? To get the form, it's www.gov.uk/the Windrush Compensation Scheme. If you type that into Google, you're going to see it come up. Only click on the government website. Don't click on no other site. No other site hasn't got nothing for any of you. Click on the government website and it's going to show you the free applications. Yes, sir? There's no deadline as yet, so everyone needs to apply as soon as possible because we don't know if there's going to be a deadline. Yes, sir? Yes. So did you come before 1973? Oh, this is not the correct form for you. This is what your children would use. This is a close family member form for someone who come before that time. You need to get the primary claimant form.